those are the things that are causing us to lose. And until I can figure out a way to get it through there, we got a 1 yard run and we get a block in the back, and now it's 1st and 20. Things like that the good teams don't do.
I don't know. I wasn't really looking at the rush. I'll have to watch the film and then I could better answer that question. But I think they got home a couple times, and just wasn't our best drive.
No, it was not the best drive, nor was it the best defense, nor was it the best anything really yesterday. A game, I think, ultimately that leading up to the final score, Judd Zulgad, Phil Mackey, Declan Goff here on Purple Daily, that brought a lot of positive vibes and feelings up until the end. Justin Jefferson has his breakout game, a little bit reminiscent of like that Randy Moss Green Bay or Randy Moss Dallas, where it's just like, whoa, this isn't just a project. This isn't just someone that caught a couple passes. This is like a superstar breaking out in the NFL, and overshadowed by chaos at the end on that drive, bad offensive line play, and an 0-3 start. Judd Zulgad.
Yeah, besides that, it's great though.
It is.
Everything's going really well.
So let's just waste no time. Let's get right into it. Let's fire up some appropriate music here. Every Monday on the show, we deliver our Vikings statements. Things that we learned, things that we observed, whatever it may be. Viking statements from not only the game against the Titans, but the 0-3 overall start. Judd, go ahead.
All right.
You tee off.
I'm actually going to start off with a positive. And it's not Jefferson's huge day, which was a breakout game. But my statement is this: we should be talking way more about the fact that Dalvin Cook rushed for 181 yards on 22 carries with a touchdown. By the way, that's an average of 8.2 yards per carry, and also caught 2 passes for 18 yards. Dalvin Cook had a monster game. This is the game when you decided to sign him to that contract now 3 weeks back, and we're all like, whoa, hold on a sec. We need to see a lot. This is the definition of a lot. Now you lost, and unfortunately, between the loss and Jefferson's huge game, it sort of gets lost. But my statement is we should be talking way more about one of the great days that Dalvin Cook has had since being drafted by the Vikings.
And think about this. He also caught 2 passes for 18 yards. So he had 199 yards of total offense in that game yesterday. So you have one player go for, let's round it up to 200 yards of total offense. You have another player go for 175 yards on 7 catches. You can't lose that game. And we're gonna get to a lot of the reasons why, but you can't play as poor defensively, and you can't bungle the last drive the way that the Vikings did when all you need is a field goal to win. Like, you just wasted 2 great performances, 2 of the best offensive performances we've seen in the last handful of years, really in the Mike Zimmer era. Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen have done this a couple times on the receiving end, but this was one of the best performances of Dalvin Cook's career. But it just feels wasted.
And by the way, the Vikings are the first NFL team
this is great
to have one player record 175 rushing yards and another player have 175 yards receiving in the same game, regardless of win or loss. That's never actually happened before.
That's never happened before?
That's never happened before. And guess what?
And
you still lost.
And the record is 0-1.
And you still lost.
First time in NFL history, and the record's 0-1. Think about that. But Dalvin Cook was spectacular. I again,
peak Vikings.
I referenced the fact that every time he was handed the ball on Sunday, Dalvin Cook averaged 8.2 yards a carry. Think about that. Not 4 yards, not like 6 yards, which would be fantastic. 8.2. 2 yards off of 10 yards per carry.
Amazing. Also, okay, I don't know what the historical, we probably have to talk to ESPN stats and information or something, but usually yards per play kind of tells you in the NFL who dominated the game, who won the game, right? It's not always foolproof, but if it's, one team had 5.5 yards per play, the other team had 3 yards per play, all right, the team that had 5.5 yards per play probably won, barring a bunch of turnovers. All right.
Sure.
That's kind of the story of this game. The Vikings averaged 7.5 yards per play offensively. That's nuts. That's a great day at the office. Now, they allowed 6 yards per play defensively, which is bad. That's bad.
Yep.
But for there to be a 1.5 yard per play difference between the two teams and for you to lose that game is a rarity. You would not see that very often in the NFL. But here we are. Vikings setting
historical. But Dalvin Cook, bravo. What a day.
Have a day, man. All right, Viking statements, Declan Goff.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson has arrived, and I know that's obviously like kind of the biggest statement from this game with 7 catches and 175 yards, but you've been waiting for the guy to break out. And, I did see some slander from Vikings fans of typical, like a little bit of passive-aggressive of, yeah, Stephon Diggs, we didn't need you. By the way, like Stephon Diggs still is Stephon Diggs and is probably a top 5 wide receiver, but I guess we can't just enjoy that without pouting on him a little bit. That being said, Justin Jefferson, this is exactly why you drafted him. You didn't think he'd explode like this right away. Where was he the first 2 weeks? We can debate whose fault that truly is, but I think the fact that Justin Jefferson has emerged here is going to make things a lot easier and at least more watchable, because we all can agree yesterday's game was a fun game.
Yep, and I would say this. So he had 7 catches, or I'm sorry, he had 7 of his 9 targets in the first half. He had nice catches that set up scores, I think, of 33 and 31 yards. But the play that stands out to me as just the holy cow play, it's the third quarter 71-yard touchdown. And it's not just the catch and run. It's the fact, I think it was around the 18-yard line of the Titans, Phil, that he cut and the 2 defenders collided. That's a hell of an instinctual cut there and play. So this is, to me, what we saw. What Jefferson did on Sunday was not just some nice game and, oh, yeah, let's see. It was definitive statements by him of ability that will carry on. And now the key is, and we talked about this on the show earlier, he can't have 0 targets in the fourth quarter. But that being said, he did things I thought on Sunday that were okay. He gets it, and he is prepared to get the ball in games a lot.
Yes,
from here on out.
It was an oh my god factor that I remember distinctly from the 1998 season. And I'm not going to put him on the Randy Moss level, because Randy Moss is for my money, one of the 2 greatest wide receivers who's ever stepped foot in the NFL. Jerry Rice being the other one. But just some of the things he was doing and the way that he was just sort of joysticking his way around the football field and gaining those 175 yards. The first part of me was, wow, this dude, this isn't just like a fluke where you see BC Johnson have a big game. It's like, no, you're watching this play out, and you're literally watching a guy become one of the 15 best wide receivers in the NFL right now. And then the other part of me was kind of what you were saying. Where was this in the fourth quarter?
Yep.
And where was this in the first 2 games? And I'm not going to be super hard on the Vikings coaches for the first 2 games thing, because I don't know, sometimes they didn't have preseason games, like it was shortened practices. They were probably just, let's just get this guy eased into the NFL. Well, I think he's eased in now. So you can just look for him 100 times.
You think he's ready now?
I think he's good to go. Try to find him in the fourth quarter of a close game next time. That would be the advice here. So many potential statements here. I'll start out with this one. All right. This was a good loss for the Vikings, if you have already come to terms with reality, which I think this show has. This show had, after the first 2 losses, come to terms with, all right, for a multitude of reasons, this is just not a great team. They looked much better in week 3 than they did in the first 2 weeks. Obviously, the offensive output minus the train wreck final drive and a pick 6 that got called back, which was egregious, but the offense looked a lot better. The defense was a little bit bend but don't break, holding Tennessee to some field goals, even though they give up a ton of yards. So I think you saw enough positives to make you feel good about Justin Jefferson, make you feel good about Dalvin Cook and the contract. But ultimately, they stay right at the top of the tank for Trevor and fail for Fields group of teams. I don't think they're as bad.
Be a tight race, by the way.
It is. I don't think the Vikings are as bad as some of the other teams that are at the bottom of the standings, and so I think it'll be up to the schedule gods to let the second half shake out. But ultimately, this was not a bad loss if you're looking for silver linings and also the best possible draft pick in 2021.
Agreed completely, and because to me, what 2020. For the Vikings, if you either are with the organization or a fan of the team, needs to be about is development, right? Like it's take your young players who you need to develop, and in some cases just flat out see what they can do and let them play. And so the corners got burned, but you know what? We're learning more. And I think Jeff Gladney can play. It's going to be tough, and there's going to be games where it's going to be bad. But I don't think that he's a train wreck. Holton Hill, I'm beginning to think might be the second coming of a guy like Marcus McCauley. He might not. But, we're going to find that out. Jefferson can play. And so I think the most distressing thing is the Packer game or Colt games were just sort of these awful, what did you learn about your team? Your team just stunk. It, for the most part, embarrassed itself. Sunday was a tough loss, but it's not embarrassing. And yes, there are mistakes made. And yes, we're going to learn that some of these kids simply cannot play. But if you separate the ones that can and go from there into 2021, I don't think your path to being good again is off by like 5 years.
Yeah.
I don't look at the Vikings as a train wreck. I look at the Vikings right now as a not very good team, that assumptions were made that they were going to be better than this. Those assumptions were wrong. Now the question becomes, what can you learn? Because that's done. Like, you can't go back and be like, we really should have signed a veteran corner, like everyone said. So yeah, I'm with you. I think of the 3 defeats, this is the first one I watched and thought, okay, yeah, I can see it.
This feels, I saw Mike Rand, I think he might have posted something about this on StarTribune.com. I saw him tweet. This was the first game in the Mike Zimmer era that really truly felt like a Mike Tice era loss or a Leslie Frazier era loss, where your offense does enough, you put up 400 plus yards, and like there's a breakout performance or something.
Yep.
And the defense gives up 30 plus points, or
Which never
just like you lose a game at the end.
Right.
You know, I think we've kind of gotten used to, in the Mike Zimmer era, more often than not, if not almost all the time, when there's a close game and you have a chance to win and you're leading, you don't allow that field goal or you don't allow that touchdown. You generally stand strong and the defense comes through. And there's just not enough good players on this defense right now, especially with Danielle Hunter out, to guarantee that happening.
Absolutely.
Viking statements, back over to Declan.
Yeah, and he had a boneheaded penalty, but what's up with Irv Smith? Like, I'm just kind of confused here on, I don't know if it's the usage. He's had 2, I think now, back-to-back weeks where he's made some pretty costly penalties that have hurt the Vikings as well. And we knew the tight end sets with him and Kyle Rudolph were supposed to be like this big staple in the zone blocking scheme of Gary Kubiak. And so far, I mean, I would say, and it might not be all his fault, but he's been the most disappointing Vikings player on offense. I really think that.
Is it his fault, though?
0 targets yesterday. He had five or 6 the week before.
It's confusing, but I don't know that if I would pin him as being disappointing. I would say the lack of use of Irv Smith to me is what I don't get.
You know, and obviously, like any offensive nitpick kind of goes back to, well, whatever the formula was, they put up 30 plus points and it worked. So it's hard to really hammer them too much. And Justin Jefferson broke out and became a star. And Kyle Rudolph, there are 3 certainties in life, as I tweeted yesterday: death, taxes, and Kyle Rudolph's soft hands and heavy feet in the back of the end zone.
He's so
baby.
good in the post, man.
That was
you
a
just
catch.
get that basketball to him and he's going to slam it home every time. Unbelievable.
But every time I see like CJ Ham with 2 targets and Irv Smith with 0, I'm like, I'm not anti CJ Ham getting a swing pass once in a while. But
where
maybe
are
we
the
can
tight
find Irv
ends?
Smith.
Where are they?
The consistency there is just very odd to me.
Yeah, Gary Kubiak oftentimes has been a pro tight end offensive mastermind. So, I don't know where Irv Smith was yesterday. All right, Viking statements.
I got one for you.
I got one too.
I got a Cousins one for you.
I did too.
Okay, mine is not.
Are we gonna do the Cousins deep dive right now?
Mine is not. No, because this is actually an off the field statement.
Okay.
When did Kirk Cousins go to the Christian Ponder School of post-game press conferences?
All right, which clips do you want to hear?
If you have anything on, look at the film.
I don't know. I wasn't really looking at the rush. I'll have to watch the film, and then I could better answer that question. But I think they got home a couple times, and just wasn't our best drive. I think we ran the ball well and consistently. I think we did a better job with time of possession. I think we had some explosive plays, and there were a few things we can build on. Certainly, anytime you almost have 500 yards of offense and score 30 points, you're doing something correct.
And even that there's a third one on there too, where Courtney asks him, "Hey, you did put up 31 points. Things are good. What worked for you?"
I don't know. I don't know that I have a good answer for you, Courtney. I think it was I'm just kind of going play to play and going where my reads take me.
Okay. At some point in time here soon, can we find any Ponder post game and play it alongside Kirk post game? I swear to God. I mean, forget the defensive meltdown being Frazier era-like, which also coincides with the Ponder years. Forget all of that. I really think the biggest similarity between the 2020 Vikings and like the 2012 team or 13 team, it's Cousins has turned into Ponder postgame.
I just found some random stuff here from like 6 years ago.
Okay.
Obviously, it's very important in every game, and especially when you're on the road. I mean, you never want to give the home team that much momentum, and we kept doing that last week, and obviously we got to keep the ball in our hands and convert on third downs and keep the ball in our hands and keep our defense off the field. So, they're not on the field the whole time. I think.
It feels like he's just sort of saying things.
Just generalities, right?
Well, the thing that really stood out is that one of these quotes that we just played where he says, listen, anytime you put up 500 yards of total offense and score 30 points, that should be enough. Is basically what he said, right? And he's right. He's right. But that brings us to my next Viking statement. Okay. Kirk Cousins is the common denominator with Vikings end of game chaos for the last 3 years. I know that against the Saints in the playoffs, he threw a great dime of a pass to Adam Thielen, and he absolutely deserves that moment to be put on his mantle for the rest of his career. He doesn't have to give that back, okay? But that wasn't the end of his career, okay? Like, there are more games to be played. There are more things to be accomplished. Looking for more out of your franchise quarterback in situations like that. Can you replicate that in more situations? And I keep coming away yesterday. I know the offensive line wasn't great. I know there was a bad snap. Some of that might have been on Kirk. Maybe there was miscommunication. But why is it that almost every single time outside of that Saints game last year that Kirk Cousins is in similar situations, you got the ball, there's 2 minutes left, there's 3 minutes left, need a drive, it turns into a chaotic mess? Why is that? Why am I watching the Seattle Seahawks last night? Late drive in the fourth quarter. It's smooth. It's organized. It's poised. It's calm. The offensive line wasn't perfect, but Russell Wilson has a full command.
Because he can make plays.
He's got the 100% confidence. He's going to dagger the defense. Someone who can rise above adverse circumstances. And that's like every time outside of the Saints game, every time Kirk drowns in the moment.
Why are you asking Dex and I to assess something when it's very clear, Phil, that we haven't watched the film yet, okay? As soon as we watch the film, we'll get back to you. I'm sure the film will tell us.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer for you right now, Phil.
And then it'll be on to the Texans. Phil, I watched that film, and I'm going to tell you right now, we're on to the Texans.
Sorry,
I love football.
We're on. Yeah,
I love quarterbacks. I love Kirk and Ponder spoke in the greatest generalities of all time.
Well,
I mean, you just want to win the game and go out there, and I mean, the defense is doing a lot of things.
Right. And here's the thing, like even Kirk, I'm going to play this one more time. All right. Just listen to this.
I think we ran the ball, well and consistently. I think did a better job with time of possession. I think we had some explosive plays, and there were a few things we can build on. Certainly, anytime you almost have 500 yards of offense and score 30 points, you're doing something correct.
Okay, and I don't even disagree with him. Like, you're doing something correct when you put up that amount of yardage and points and everything. Okay, but ultimately there are so many different types of game flows and so many different ways in which an NFL game winds down to like the last portion of the fourth quarter. Sometimes it's a shootout, sometimes it's a defensive battle, but oftentimes it's a close game and a quarterback has the ball in his hands with a chance to either drive for a winning field goal or drive for a touchdown, whatever it is, right? And in those situations, Kirk Cousins facilitates chaos. Now, some of that's because Garrett Bradbury gets trucked, and I get there's certain things that like are just tougher for him to avoid because he's not mobile. And so I'm not saying that the offensive line played great. But let's go through an exercise real quick here in terms of common denominator themes with Cousins in these spots. Number one, he's winless on Monday Night Football. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that just like, is he just the unluckiest guy ever? Like, oh man, like he's been great in all those games, and like
it's what, 9 games
everything
now?
Around him is a disaster, right?
It's like 9 games now, too.
Yeah. He has 2 game-winning drives as a Vikings quarterback, including playoffs. 2 in 2 years and a month, okay? Josh Allen has 10 over that same stretch. Ryan Tannehill has 9. Derek Carr has 7. And the Raiders were like a 4-win team in one of those years, weren't they? Derek Carr has 7.
Yep.
And so, again, when Cousins gets the ball and a chance to win late in a game, yesterday, the Green Bay game last year at Lambeau, Chicago.
Yep.
Like I could keep rolling these off. Far more often than not, chaos ensues. And so we're left with one of two conclusions. Either he's just the unluckiest quarterback ever, and he's a shining star with a bunch of bums around him, like LeBron James in Cleveland. Like everyone around him is J.R. Smith, not knowing what the score is, right? Or maybe, just maybe, he is the main common denominator at the center of the chaos. And so I know there's people screaming like the offensive line was terrible. Like, I get it, but you're not going to have a clean sheet every time you drop back. Watch games in the NFL. Watch how often quarterbacks have an actual clean sheet that gives them a half hour to throw. It never happens. Like, it rarely happens. And so the best quarterbacks, even the ones who aren't very mobile, find ways to move around the pocket, take a step to the right, whatever that may be, to actually make a play. And so Kirk is just one of the worst quarterbacks at doing that, and it stood out on that final drive yesterday.
Let me give you another C word instead of chaos, okay?
Careful,
I'm going to
Judd.
give you a
All right.
C
Careful,
word.
Judd. Careful.
I'm going to give you a C. I'm worked up here, so I'm going to use it.
Careful.
I'm going to get, and it's the last series, not chaos, confidence.
Oh.
You have none. Okay, let's look at this drive. Let's take a deep breath. And let's look at this drive as an outsider who just likes football, okay? You got the ball back ultimately because of the roughing the passer penalty on your own 40, okay? There was 1:44 on the clock, not 10 seconds. The confidence should have been, oh my God, 1:44 is a ton of time in this league. You want the ball. Like, this is winning time. This is not hyperventilating time. This is a winning. In fact, I would argue that with the quarterbacks who you have the most, C word again, confidence in.
Oof. Careful.
I would, because I am worked up. I would argue that with those guys, 1:44 and possession of the ball almost is, can you drag the drive to score with no time left?
Yes.
Not,
Can you finesse
not,
it?
oh my God, can we get down the field? Where's my mommy?
Correct.
Okay. So I would say that drive is ideal. And in fact, if you have a top QB, you're actually trying to matriculate, as they say in football, down the field slowly to kick the winning field goal as time expires. So it's not a hurry up and get down there and I got to throw, and now I got to throw this pass and now a Hail Mary time. No, not at all. In fact, the Hail Mary pass was picked off and the Titans got the ball back with 58 seconds left. Again, at your own 40, a winning time drive. You can get down there.
Yes.
The second thing is the soundbite that you played from Kirk about the yardage and points being good enough is the passive aggressive nature of him. I think mainly telling his head coach, I did enough. Your
Yes.
guys didn't.
Yes.
Which by the way, might be true. Here's the problem though.
Don't say it.
Don't say it. And you are the quarterback. What you need to say is, I've got to do better. That last drive was chaos. That can't happen. And next time that I get the ball back in a winning time, 1:44 left, it won't happen. And the Kirk's lack of ability to recognize any of those things, which is a mental thing, is the starting point of the conversation of why he's not a quarterback that can take you to and or win a championship.
I mean, it is like,
How's that for C words?
I'm just glad that you didn't get us fired there.
Thank you.
I'm just glad. I got an F word. I've got an S word. And those are the ones that will get us fired when I'm thinking about Kirk Cousins. But, I get it. Like, you watch that last drive and Garrett Bradbury is getting forklifted up off the line of scrimmage and Drew Samia was a disaster. And I am not letting those guys off the hook.
Sure.
But I almost feel like, because we watch these Vikings games very intently, and then we watch the red zone version of the rest of the league, right? People tend to think that the Vikings pass protection and offensive line is, trash, god awful, and the worst in the NFL, and everybody else has a brick wall that's standing up protecting the quarterback. Well, I'll just give you this. Pro Football Focus has the Vikings not as a good pass protection team by any means, but Pro Football Focus has multiple teams last year into this year as worse than the Vikings offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And those quarterbacks still find ways to operate. Okay. The Vikings last year were middle of the pack as an offensive line overall. They were like, I don't have it in front of me. They're like between 15th and 20th, I want to say. I could pull it up just to make sure that I'm 100% sure here. But my main point here is it's not going to be perfect. And it's up to you to overcome some adverse circumstances once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Not every single time. But once in a while, when you got the ball on your 40-yard line and you only need 25 yards to go to kick a field goal, can you just find a way once in a while to get those 25 yards? It's not that much of an ask.
Correct. Absolutely.
Anyways, pass blocking in the NFL last year, the Rams, the Seahawks, the Chargers, the Jets, the Dolphins, the Falcons, like all of them were either right around the Vikings or worse. I mean, it's just like Carolina, Jacksonville, like there's other.
Seattle's had some awful lines. Absolutely awful lines.
So,
you have to make plays. Look, the play that came 11 years ago yesterday on the Favre play, on that last play, as I recall it, Patrick Willis is basically in Brett's face. Brett takes the football and rakes it around Willis, who flies by him, I believe, basically,
yes.
or is about to hit him. He rakes the ball and then reshuffles it and throws that dart. Kirk Cousins right now, unfortunately, and this is now and forever as Kirk is concerned, can't make any part of that play. And when you're paying a guy that much, it's an issue. Like, you can't just be like, oh, it's not his fault and too bad. But I think what bothers me the most is the fact that Kirk saw what he did as being good enough, as if that's the excuse to go home, sit in the Barc-a-lounger and say, oh, that's too bad our defense didn't play well. It's not my fault. I think that bugs me the most, because that's one where you need to accept responsibility. You've lost 3 games, 2 of which I think you were terrible in. And the fact that it all seems to be sort of over his head or pass him by, that he owns a responsibility. If there's a starting point to what bothers me about him, I think it's that.
The other thing I would add to this here, and we will do plenty more of this throughout the week in terms of just evaluating the offense and Kirk Cousins, is when he says, when the final drive train wrecks the way that it did, and his response after the game is, I mean, we put up 30 points. I don't know what else he wants to do. Like, it's basically what he said, right? That's almost like a golfer saying, well, I mean, I drove the ball well.
Yep.
My irons were great. Oh, should be enough, right? Well, did you make putts? Like, did you sink a 15-footer? Did you sink a 20-footer? Like, to me, end game is equally as important as the rest of the game. Like, and coaches forget about this with their game and clock management and timeout management too. Well, I schemed. What do you want me to do? I put together a game plan and a blueprint. I coached them all up. Right, but did you burn all your timeouts in the third quarter and leave yourself with nothing at the end of the game? And now you're a
bad challenge.
Right, and now you're wondering, like, wow, why didn't we have a chance at the end of the game? Like, being on point at the end of a game is important, and I think we should probably add statement game here real quick. The offensive line was a disaster too. Drew Samia was one of the worst graded players of the season, according to Pro Football Focus. And Garrett Bradbury was god-awful yesterday as well, and he was bad on that last drive.
Where's Pat Elflein?
And, yeah.
Never thought I'd say that.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to Pat Elflein? Can they bring him back?
God. So right guard is a problem for the Vikings here. And that is not, we are not sitting here trying to minimize that as well. But I just think, like, offensive lines aren't perfect across the league, and other quarterbacks overcome it once in a while to gain 25 yards for a game-winning field goal.
Phil, though, I am with your point. Ultimately, that is a productive loss. I really think if that's a win in December or January or some point, we look back and are like, why'd you really win that game? So I think your starting point is correct, which is it's a good loss. It was fun to watch, entertaining game. You saw some good things. Jefferson, Cook, right? Like, there's some really good things there. I'll just never forget 2011 and those 3 miserable wins. No excuse for them. The Arizona win, yeah, okay. But Washington and Carolina, you never look back at those wins and said, you know what, that was a really fun day.
Here's your competition right now, winless teams. If you are rooting for the Vikings to finish with the highest possible draft pick, There are 8 winless teams currently in the NFL. Now, Philadelphia and Cincinnati tied each other yesterday, so technically those teams are at the top of the pack.
And that's just going to cause problems down the line. You know it will. Those ties will.
I hate ties.
I hate them.
In the NFL, they mess with my mind.
The math gets weird.
Yeah.
But there are 6 bona fide 0-3 contenders
Yep.
for Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields right now. The Vikings, the Texans, they play each other this weekend, so
And I think the
something's
Texans-
got to give.
And I think the Texans, because of their quarterback, are actually should have a better record than the Vikings.
They've also played the most brutal schedule. They've played
Yeah.
Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Ben Roethlisberger
Okay.
right out of the gate.
I think
so.
the Texans will probably get up to about 6, don't you guys?
Oh, yeah.
I could say, well, they have a tough schedule too. Their strength of schedule is the toughest.
But they've already gone through the toughest part
True.
of their tough schedule.
I just don't think
So,
Deshaun can completely stink.
I agree.
Yeah, I would bet on the Texans to win more games than the Vikings, but I don't
Okay.
know. I wouldn't die on that hill.
All right.
The New York Giants, the Denver Broncos are both atrocious football teams. The New York Jets,
The Jets are Adam Gase. Oh, my gosh.
The Falcons the Falcons have had 20-point leads on everybody. The Falcons shouldn't be 0-3, but here we are. So I would say the real contenders, like the title belt contenders for top of the draft pick,
Yes.
top of the draft, number 1, the Jets, the Broncos, the Giants, for sure ahead of the Vikings. Those are bad football teams.
Yeah.
The Vikings have some really good components, but are just injuries and
The Vikings have to be bad enough in the first part of their schedule, the first half, that they check out for the second half. That's your hope. Like, you need the veterans just to mentally disengage.
and I don't know, like I don't think like Harrison Smith is going to mentally disengage. He's not.
I'd like to talk to him. Can I get a conference with Harry?
So here's the schedule, right? So at Houston, at Seattle. At Seattle's a loss. There's no way they win that game.
By how much?
At Houston's a coin toss. Home against Atlanta is kind of a coin toss. Then you get a bye. At Green Bay, that is shaping up for a bad news afternoon for the Vikings.
Yeah.
And then you get home against Detroit, at Chicago, Dallas. Like then there's some winnable games in there, but it's conceivable the Vikings could start like 1-5 or 1-6 here out of the gate. And that would put them in interesting position coming out of their bye week.
We need the
after Green Bay game.
Falcons. We need the Falcons to make a coaching change here soon, because I think that they would get a little bit of a burst, because they're not a terrible football team. I think they would get a little bit of a burst from Quinn being fired. And I think they could beat the Vikings if they have a new coach and sort of re-engage themselves for a few weeks. So I'd like to see the Falcons make a coaching change here pretty soon.
Yeah. We'll keep
that
up.
too much to ask?
We'll keep up on tankathon.com, which is updating these mock drafts every day. In fact, we'll tease this for either tomorrow or later in the week. They've got another quarterback going to the Vikings. I mean, you can just go look on tankathon.com. But we'll talk. We'll do it. We'll do an on-one mock draft.
Jesus.
We'll talk. It'll be great.
But don't go look.
No,
because we're going to tell you.
Wait for the episode.
We're going to tell you when we
Yeah.
come back.
Also, we're still doing our Corona Hard Seltzer Ultimate Home Tailgate Party giveaway. We're giving away a 65-inch TCL TV with a soundbar. We're giving away $200 worth of Grunhofer's meats and $100 to MGM Wine and Spirits for you to potentially buy some Corona Hard Seltzer with. You can enter in one of 2 ways. Just go to scorenorth.com, click on rewards. You'll see it as the first giveaway right there. Just click on it and you can enter. Or download or open the Score North app. It's free in the Apple and Google Play stores. Just register your name and your email and enter through listener rewards. Thanks to our partners here, Corona Hard Seltzer, TCL TVs, Grunhofer's, and MGM Wine and Spirits. All right. Vikings and Texans. Pillow fight on the horizon. Thanks for hanging out with us. I'm Phil Mackey. That's Judd Zulgad, Declan Goff producing. We'll see you next time on Purple Daily.